Hi, it's Rob Saik here. I'm CEO and founder of T1 Technology Corporation, and we have AGvisor Pro, which is a connectivity platform for agriculture. It's where farmers can put in questions and get connected to experts and companies. And so this is a series called the AGvisor Podcast, and we're going to do a four-part series with Dave Nussbaumer, and Dave is he's with Lakeview Insurance. And insurance is a big deal for farmers today. Many farming operations are in the multi-millions of dollars, and there's a lot of moving parts to insurance. So we're going to do a four-part series. We're going to look at property insurance, liability insurance. We're going to look at seed and crop insurance. We're going to look at comprehensive farm insurance. As a four-part series. So Dave, can you give us a little bit of background to you before we get into this first part, which is going to be on the property insurance part? Can you give us a little bit of background to Dave Nussbaumer and Lakeview Insurance?
Hey Rob, yes. Yeah, I've been a farmer or was a farmer for many years. I actually I call myself a dual citizen. I was born and raised on the West Coast. Dad was in the RCMP, but we always had a family farm out in Saskatchewan. So grew up till I was 17, but always came to the family farm ever since I was 8 years old. In fact, we were just talking about it. They put a name tag on me and they loaded me on a plane as an 8-year-old by myself. I don't think you can do that nowadays.
Wow.
Yeah, and I got on the plane and flew to Regina, and my uncle and grandma would come pick me up, and I literally spent summers uh, just outside of Yorkton, Saskatchewan here.
Well, that was good. It was a good way for your parents to get rid of you, it sounds
I
like.
think that was the big thing. It had nothing to do with me doing a little bit of workout on the farm. It was just getting rid of their high-strung kid. So no, and then at the age of 14, I actually started working at the farm for my uncle, and dad had some land out there. And so I went there and helped. And then he got transferred to Yorkton, and hence my farming career started at the age of 18, pardon me. I rented some land, and until 2014, we farmed 2,600 acres, and we actually had a 600 ewe flock of sheep, and yeah, just always enjoyed the farm. I still live on the family farm. It's our third generation, but I rent it out now to our neighbors. So yeah, very involved.
What was it? What was the crossover into the insurance industry, Dave?
So in 1993, one of the fellows I rented land from, and a long time family friend, 3 generation friend, Dave Farrell, uh, started up a company called Farrell Agencies in 1974, and they started developing specialty ag products in the early 90s, 92, 93. Started in the dairy industry, had a dairy program, then branched off into the PMU industry, the pregnant Mary urine industry. And right when I started, we developed a seed grower program for seed growers.
Okay.
And they needed someone to come and sell insurance. And he says, listen, do you want to come and sell insurance? And who knows, maybe there'd be an opportunity. And I said, yeah, if you work around my farming, I'd be more than happy to do that. And that's what we did. Started with the PMU program. I literally traveled Manitoba, and we insured over 200 PMU farms in Manitoba. I did personally. And then the seed grower program took off, and that was Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Alberta, and just went from there.
So the transition between that work and into Lakeview Insurance. So we're here to talk about Lakeview Insurance and learn a little bit about it, and then we're going to get into the discussion around property insurance. How long has Lakeview Insurance been around? Tell me a little bit about your geographic footprint, Dave.
So Lakeview Insurance, through my travels with Farrell Agencies, and I became a partner in 1997 there. One of the things I would always do, we always meet other brokers, and I met the Reimers. Uh, I don't even know when, back in the day, and they actually started selling our seed grower program for us. So we just became good friends. I was the president of our provincial association. They would always come to the annual meetings, and we hit it off. They started in 1983. Their dad actually started up back in the day, and he was actually, they lived on a pig farm, so they have a farming background as well. And we just, we connected. And then when Feral Agencies came to an end, I had a little 3-year hiatus, which was part of my non-compete clause as a partner there. I ended up going to work with Lakeview, and we started a Saskatchewan branch here in Yorkton, and basically what's happening is I'm just bringing in my old team from our Feral Agency days. We opened up an office in Humboldt. I have a young fella there who's a partner as well, Eric Yeager. Still an active farmer. He's a very aggressive, young, active farmer, good guy, great insurance broker. So him and I actually started out, and then I brought over Kirby Stewart from my Feral office, and Brent Danchilla is now with us, and we opened up an office in Stoughton. We have Scott Schultz. I don't know if for any rider fans out there, Scott Schultz has joined our team as a partner out of Regina. He's a non-farmer, but he does some farm insurance, but he's coming to us quite often for some advice. But Scott's more of a commercial broker with us. So not the farm guy per se as Kirby and Eric and Dave and Brent, but definitely a very integral part of our operation.
Well, it sounds like lots of expansion. Sounds to me like a pretty experienced team. Let's shift over into the segment for this episode, which is property insurance. We're talking about protecting the hard assets of the farm, things like buildings, equipment, property. As operations grow, these values, David, this, you can't imagine the values of things on the farms, and I think this is one of the areas as often people are underestimating the asset value. So how do you ensure that your property is properly protected? So this particular first episode with you, David, is about property insurance and protecting the farm assets. And let's just what types and where does a person start?
Well, firstly, no one likes to pay premium. So the natural instinct of any person, not just farmers, and when I speak about farmers, I speak from the heart because I was one. We all watch our expenses. We think insurance is an expense, and it is, but it's a very important part of doing business. First thing you do is say, oh no, I can replace those bins for X amount of dollars, and I can build my house for this much money. People have lost track, especially post-COVID, what replacement cost truly is. I mean, years ago, not too many years ago, you were building a house for $175 a square foot. Now it's over $400 a square foot.
I know. I'm doing that right now, building a house.
Exactly.
And it's just through the roof. Yeah.
Well, farm shops are the same thing. I mean, and we don't have farm shops anymore like we used to have. Now we have palaces. I mean, they're beautiful, but they're not $30-$40 a square foot. I mean, a shop is anywhere from $70 to $90 a square foot, depending on how extensive you take it. And same with pole sheds. I mean, you used to buy or build them for $5 a square foot. Now they're $18 to $20 a square foot. So we bring that to when we sit. One big thing we do is we try to come on to people's farms, meet them in person at their location. We travel lots because we find customers are more appreciative that we're at their table, and they get relaxed. They start talking, and we just openly discuss what it costs to replace stuff. And often I'll come across policies where they're sitting with $500 and $1,000 deductibles. If you're a big operation, if you got $100,000 premium, I don't know why you're not looking at a $5,000 and $10,000 deductible, but right. insured to value. Just don't hesitate.
Why would you risk your policy? Why would you trigger a policy for $1,000 deductible? It just doesn't make sense.
Oh, exactly. And especially when you get into operations, let's use seed growers as an example. You now have an asset there that is making you money. Your seed plant generates income for you. Don't cut corners there, because that's a revenue generator for you. It's one thing if you lose your shop and you're short a couple $100,000, you can borrow a little extra money from the bank and get it rebuilt. Whereas you lose your income and you're short, Now it's really hurting you. So we try to stress the importance. You insure your home for sure to replacement cost. Your bins, again, get them on a blanket and cover them properly. Worry about the big things. Go to high deductibles. That's first off. We get their head wrapped around that at their location.
I had a friend just recently had his truck broken into, and he lost all of his tools. And he had to start going through a mental calculation of all the tools that were in the truck. And it was unreal. Like just that small thing, but it was a lot of money just tied up in the tools that were stolen.
I just went to a client's place here a few weeks ago. They just came on board with us, actually just outside of Yorkton, and we go for a walk. And we went to the shop, and they had $20,000 tools on their policy. And I took one look, and I just said, "Listen, guys, you're maybe closer to 100,000 if you really want to get into it." And they agreed, and so instead of having $1,000 deductible, we bumped them to 10,000. Now, if they have a big loss, they're not short, potentially 80, $90,000. They're covered properly. So, and they'll live with the deductible at the end of the day. And you can segregate where you put your deductibles. You can have buildings at a higher deductible, keep your house a little lower if you want. Like same with machinery, move it up a little bit. And it's just part of manipulating your premium dollars for the best value.
So speaking of machinery, how do you ensure that farm machinery, combines, sprayers, tractors are properly valued and covered? Like how do you do that? What's the process there?
And I guess if we have a strength, we understand machinery. And if we go through lists with guys and all of a sudden they miss, where's your sprayer? Because we're farmers, we know where we pick up on little, well, do you have a stone picker? Do you have this, the little things, right? And they're not little anymore.
Yeah.
When it comes to the values, well, first of all, if it's financed, most of the values come through in the contract that we get because we have to send something off to FCC or some other lending institution. So the value's there. Most companies have replacement cost, and it varies from company to company whether they have 3 years or 5 years replacement cost. So we do insure stuff, equipment to the full replacement value.
David, I was wondering on these farming operations, some farmers will put all of their equipment into some big pole shed or something like that. Other guys will spread it around. Is there any difference or preference one way or the other? Because if something were to happen inside that pole shed, you lose everything versus it being spread around. I'm curious about that.
Well, that's a great question. That gets pretty deep from the inside of where we come from in the insurance industry, because everyone insures with a company, SGI, Wawanesa, Red River Mutual. What they don't realize is all those companies buy reinsurance behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And every time they buy reinsurance, there's an additional cost. And so that reflects at the front end of the premium. And it's becoming a big concern for insurance company, because now farms, it's not two Massey 860s and, a Verstal 4400 Swather. Now we're talking $1.2 million in machinery or per combine. And let's say there's 8 or 10 of them in a shed. So now you have a high exposure TIV, total insured value, and they go by PML, possible maximum loss. And we are literally doing yard diagrams, sending them to the companies. And if there's too much exposure in one building, we'll bring on a subscriber. We'll split the policy off. We'll share it with one of the other companies.
And isn't that interesting?
Spreading the risk. Yeah, we have some farm policies that we, because of that we have 2 or 3 or 4 insurance companies, and they all share. SGI and Wawanesa and Red River and Portage, they'll all come on for a percentage. They actually like that. It spreads the risk around.
Huh. So, wow, that's a really interesting strategy there, Dave. Never thought about that, but it makes sense. Rather than one insurer taking on all the risk, you split it amongst several. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Last year we had a loss just outside of Humboldt, and a machinery shed, and the fellow had his semi parked in the shed, and then had it plugged in because he was going to haul grain. It was a little cooler, obviously, and caught on fire, and he lost a fair amount of machinery. And at the wrong time of year, if all of a sudden you're in April
Mm-hmm.
and you lose all your tractors, or your majority of your tractors, and maybe a drill is sitting in there or two, and your sprayer's in there, and you lose everything 30
You've
days.
lost you've lost the ability to farm overnight.
Exactly. And now the mad scramble's on, and machinery, as we know, comes and goes, and you can replace it, but sometimes there's some timelines there. Like, you just necessarily don't go out and buy a 600 horsepower tractor and a new air drill that's all set up ready to go, or a sprayer that's ready to go. So there is a little bit of management from that end, and we do discuss that with folks. I was at a client's place here this winter, and very big shed, lots of machinery, and they said, as great as it is, we don't like to see that in our. Farmers are creatures of habit.
Mm-hmm.
They put bins up, they get them in a nice row, big long row, so all the neighbors can see them, and we all do it, right? I did it on my farm.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we put them 2 feet apart, and there's a no-no. You put them about 15 or 20 feet apart, because the wind can blow through them. If you put them together, it's like a wall. Just
Yeah.
to realize that. You don't think of that, but when you see a plow wind go through, you notice it real quick. But same with machinery storage. Build 2 sheds instead of one great big one, and the insurance industry will love you a little bit more.
Wow. Speaking of buildings, let's talk about other kinds of buildings. Like you mentioned already, shops, grain storage. What about greenhouses and other specialized structures?
Yes, we actually we have access in our office. Lakeview has a program out of the States that we insure greenhouses with. Greenhouses are a little bit tougher because there's a lot of older ones out there, and some are not as modern, and so they're more prone to hail and wind. So it varies. Every operation from a greenhouse is, I know when you get into Alberta, in certain areas, there's some nice greenhouse operations, but we do have a program for greenhouse operators.
David, is there like property insurance for catastrophic events like tornadoes, hailstorms, fire, and what are the exclusions that farmers should be aware of?
So one of the coverages that people don't realize, let's go to farm outbuildings, shops, bins. Um, Back in the day, back when insurance started in 100 years ago, fire was basically the main coverage you were buying back at the time. And as time evolved, our industry started adding additional coverage, lightning, wind, hail, and then it branched off into comprehensive or all risk coverage. We sell now when we go to, and we still see the odd policy out there, but where they just have what they call fire and EC, fire and extended coverage. That's fire, lightning, windstorm, hail. The main thing it's not picking up is collision. So you have a 60,000 bushel bin now, and you're pushing snow, or I'll take it a step further. Your hired man is pushing snow, because out of all our claims, I don't want to pick on hired men here, but hired man's pushing snow with a blade or whatever, and he happens to catch the corner of a 60,000 bushel bin. They have to rebuild it a lot of times. And comprehensive coverage would pick that up as an insured peril under collision, whereas named perils or fire only won't cover that. So those are little things. Snow load's another one on some of these big sheds. Comprehensive will pick up snow load. Fire and EC, unless it's extended or they have an endorsement adding on snow load, typically they don't. Every company has a little something different that they do. But snow load is, we've paid out many snow load claims, some of these large span buildings, and you get a big wet heavy snow and they collapse. So we've tried
Fascinating. This is fascinating. Listen to the stories. I love the stories because these are all real. As we wind down here, I got a few more for you. How often should a farm operation review their property? What's the cadence that you use to sit down with your clients?
So we try to make a point of having everyone's farmers renew between October and, let's say, April. We have a
Okay.
few. We have a few that are in the summertime, and we work around that and work around with them. Especially guys like dairy farmers are a little different. But the reality is, once spring hits, farmers don't want to see us. They're busy. When they do get some time off, they're gone to the lake or whatever, and it's a busy, May till October, they're tied up. And
Yeah.
so we try to do all of our renewals in the middle of the winter. We make it a habit, unless they request that we don't, but we try to go to everyone's yard every year and do an annual renewal with them. Um, and if they're away, we just put it off and deal with it. We also send out a text, um, early before seeding, say, hey, listen, keep us updated if you happen to have bought anything. One thing, when they're financing things, we automatically get any changes because the banks and credit unions are
Well, what if they're leasing? Is that
same thing.
same
Yeah,
thing?
leases automatically have to have insurance on them automatically. So before they'll release the funds, they need confirmation of insurance. So that part's good. But say a guy buys a few things.
What about if I have somebody else's like custom equipment on the farm and something were to happen?
Well, the custom operator's responsible for their own equipment.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you're renting, say you go to Flammans or Maple Ag and Outdoor and you rent something, they'll, before you usually leave the lot, they'll make sure that you put insurance on it or you buy insurance from them.
Dave, is there something farmers can do proactively? Let's say you're coaching me. I'm a farm operator, and in the event that some catastrophic thing happens, a fire or something happens on my farming operation, is there something that I could be doing proactively to make the claim process faster? What would you advise me to do if I was, setting up a file or whatever to help you get my claim done faster?
Well, first of all, document everything. If there is a claim, a property claim, document, notify us right away. Don't wait. Sometimes we can mitigate and
Do you do
make.
you like do you like pictures and videos, or do you like that, or?
You know what? With cell phones nowadays, I had a tornado go through here in Manitoba here a few years ago, and when I saw the destruction of the tornado, uh, it certainly, it helps with just showing the seriousness of the event. Either way, adjusters are on it, and as soon as we're notified, we notify adjusters right away. And depending on the severity and how big the loss area is, you get a big hailstorm that's 15 or 20 miles wide, you might not see an adjuster for 4 or 5 days. So we guide them. That's where I've been in this business since 1993. A lot of times I'll just tell the guys what to start doing, and
Yeah.
I'm pretty comfortable that I can get a hold of the insurance company and said, we told them to hire this person, we're doing this, things like that. Because of that experience, we're comfortable delegating and starting the claim process. The insurance companies actually appreciate it if we kind of take the bull by the horns and start the process, because sometimes you'll save them a lot of money, especially on like a water damage claim in a house.
Yeah. Well, this has been a great first episode of a four-part series on insurance with Dave Nussbaumer of Lakeview Insurance, and join them on AGvisorPRO. AGvisorPRO can be downloaded on iOS or Android for free. You'll find their company profile as well as instantaneous connection to Dave and his team on AGvisorPRO. And Dave, I want to thank you for being part of the platform and looking forward to the next episode.
Excellent. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it.
Right on. Okay, until next time, this is Rob Saik on AGvisorPOD.